What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chris. It's your boy Chris. It's another amazing episode of Financipation. This channel is all about making money. It's all about saving money. It's all about building generational wealth. And it's all about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty. On this channel, everybody, I try to give you a six-figure MBA level worth of investing and financial knowledge for free. And I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit for this particular one, okay? So I want to say thank you to all my ladies. Tatiana, thank you for coming on. Thank you to Onika. Obviously, thank you to my fellows, but I want to say thank you to the ladies because I pretty much opened this particular podcast up to a lot of different women on social media, and y'all were the only two that wanted to show up again. So I want to say thank you for that. And I want to say you guys should be commended for that. And this is a conversation, everybody. Why church singles ministries no longer work? And this is a conversation I wanted to have because our pastors aren't talking about it. And outside of our churches, our youth leaders aren't talking about it. And when I talk about this stuff with my boys, and I'm like lifting the weights, and I go to the gun range, when I'm playing ball with my friends, and I'm kind of talking to my higher caliber, upperly mobile brothers, like at the country clubs and places like that, us upperly mobile, upper echelon men, these are the conversations that Will, Leo, Jermaine, Shah, we all kind of have with each other. But for whatever reason, that information is not being disseminated, I think, to the masses to some extent. And full disclosure, I have two sons. I have one son, another one's on the way. And 25 years from now, when my boys are ready to, I would say, start looking for a higher quality, attractive woman to choose for their wives and everything, when I see the kind of messaging that's kind of going out from toxic feminist channels, from misogynistic man channels and things like that, it's kind of terrifying me about the types of women that are going to be available for my boys to marry 25 years from now. So as a result, I want to get some attractive professional women on here who can kind of say the lady side of things about what they're saying. And I want to get some brothers up here who can also kind of have this conversation as well, because I think our community, unfortunately, is disappearing. So with that, let's all go ahead and get started. So first off, I want everybody to introduce themselves. So I want to start with you, Tatiana. This is a financial channel. So if you have a business, I want you to give a shout out to that business because I want you to make millions of dollars off of that business. So ladies first. Tatiana, let's start with you first. Please introduce yourself, business, dating and relationship status. You want to go there, it's up to you, okay? The floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tatiana, as he mentioned. I am owner of Tone 360, where, I'm a personal trainer, but I also focus, most importantly, I think the thing that makes me different is I focus on the power of the mind is really what it is. Through fitness, the power of the mind, how really your thoughts really is what gets you places. Your body changes, everything, financial, everything. Everything starts with the mind. So that's my focus when it comes to my business, but I'm using it through fitness. That's what I'm doing.
Gotcha. Okay, like I say, ladies, the roses amongst the thorns. Onika, you're next.
Hello, everyone. Well, my name is Onika, and I feel like I can't do my intro just by myself since you guys see I'm part of the J&O show. Mm-hmm. And this is my husband, Jermaine. And we actually have a podcast / YouTube channel where basically we talk about things that you don't necessarily talk about when it comes to relationships. As Chris was mentioning earlier, thinking about the future with our children. We have two children as well. We have a boy and a girl, and we see how the world is going when it comes to relationships with men and women, especially in communities. In our community specifically, it doesn't look good. And so we felt the need to be able to kind of talk about some of the things that we were never necessarily told in pertaining to relationships, some of the things that we can do to help ourselves make our relationships better, because we believe that if we have stronger relationships with one another, we'll be able to have stronger family units and thus building stronger communities. So that's pretty much our goal. I don't know if tag team, if they want to hop in and add anything into that.
No, I think she pretty much said it all. We just wanted to do our part. We saw what was happening to a lot of the couple friends that we grew up around and that we were around, the troubles they were having in their relationships. And we saw that we started to become sort of the counselors to our little group. And as we interacted with them, we had a lot of things in common in our relationships that would happen. And I was like, why didn't anybody ever tell us this? And then we came out into these YouTube streets and we found out that there was a whole world of stuff going on. So we had to learn a lot, but at the same time, trying to impart the knowledge from being together for 20 years, 18 years married, 20 years together. So yeah, that's it.
That is what's up. That is what's up. Shad, my boy, you next. You're up next, dog. Do your thing.
What's going on, everybody? It's Rashad Little. I have a business called Candid Yams Kickback, where I use media and film to introduce conversations that the J and O show talks about a lot. When I graduated college, I realized that there was a human condition, right? And there were a lot of problems associated with the world. And I wanted to use media and film to bring those conversations up and to talk about them. And my whole goal when people come to my show is to get them to I would say activate their curious mind on what health, wealth, love, and happiness is. And if you're not achieving that at the highest level, how do you do that? And that's my goal for that. So my business is Candid Yams Kickback, and I use film and conversation to help people and motivate people in life. So
For sure. Hey, Leo, you're up next. Do me a favor though, bro. Slide your camera down a little bit, okay? So we can see your whole face. Yep. Perfect. All right, Leo, you up next. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone.
Business owner, all that good stuff.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here. My name is Leo Smart. I'm a math teacher and professor adjunct. I have a tutoring agency called Hakuna Matata Tutoring. I appreciate Chris because me and Chris were way back, and I've seen his growth, and I really admire him more, even though he's married and things are different. He has moved on, moved forward, moved out of town, but he's still in support of singles and the community, the Black community. And now I'm seeing the GNO show that there are others as well. So, I appreciate for all y'all doing, because as you know, the narrative out there is not conducive for families. So that's my spirit.
Hey, Leo, I want to do a one-on-one with you for free at some point because you're a math teacher, and I'm saying as a guy who has kids now, I want my sons to start getting some kind of pre-algebra, pre-calculus, pre-K, pre-geometry kind of e-products that's going to be out here taught by a Black man. And you're tailor-made for that, bro. I know a teacher out in Singapore is making about $500,000 a month with the e-product. So me and you, let's work together at some point and put that together, okay? Because there's a lot of Black folks who would love to see a Black male teaching our Black boys algebra, calculus, and geometry, okay? All right. Yep. I think Onika raised her finger. She agrees. Will, my boy, you say the things I can't say. You're up next, fam.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Will. I am a head of underwriting in the banking and finance space for Merchant Cash Advance company here in Miami. Also, I am the co-founder of a social men's group, professional men's group here in Miami. We call it the Gentleman's Gathering. Our objective right now is to build, bond, and connect with other gentlemen, and then also be able to give back to the community with our knowledge, specifically targeting young men who are in that 16 to 25 age group, so that they have a sort of a guideline or sort of a mentor as they get ready to prepare for the real world. So I think part of what inspired me to do that was, when I was that age, I didn't necessarily have that. So I think that our young men, a lot of times we get lost and we fall behind because we don't necessarily have that guidance when we're coming out of high school or coming out of college. So the more that we can pass that knowledge down to our youth at a younger age, I feel like they have a better chance to move forward at a faster pace. So that's something that we're building here in the city. And, as far as the panel, Chris, great panel that you have together, that you brought together today. I appreciate the fact that we have so many different perspectives. That's going to be able to share knowledge and share sort of points of view that the rest of us aren't necessarily thinking about. So I'm appreciative. I appreciate you having me on once again.
Anytime. I just want to advance this conversation because our community is disappearing, and it's terrifying me because a community that doesn't have babies, that's not basically putting babies in situations where they can succeed, that's a community that's not going to be around. It's not going to lead for very long. It's just as simple as that. So let's get started. Why church singles ministries don't work anymore. So my first question I want to ask the panel is this: 80% of the Black church today, that includes Baptists, Adventists, AME, American Methodist Episcopals, Pentecostals, is full of single women. Yet most men I talk to inside the churches, we all say that that there are no women inside the church. And if you want to take it to the nations of Islam, it's the exact opposite. Like 20% of the church are females and 80% are men. So why do we say, fellas, there are no women in the church? Let's start with you, Rashad. Go.
Man, give me the question one more time. Why are there no what in the church?
Gotcha. So 80% of the Black churches today, Black Baptists, Black Adventists, AME, Pentecostal, are essentially full of single women. Yet, I know when we all get together, we start talking, at least I know I did when I was a bachelor, we always said there are no women in church. So if 80% of the church are full of single women, why do we all say there are no women in the church?
In short, I think, one, you got to get there, first of all. If that's what you desire is a woman for the church, you got to be there, right? But also, I think today the church and how we look at church, especially after COVID, we have to look at church a little bit differently in the sense where you just like, I think people are more, established wanting to get more established in personhood, like that relationship with yourself first to cure all of those ills before you even start talking about a relationship with someone else. Because me growing up in church, I knew that one day I was going to, study the Bible, get baptized, right? And then, find me a wife, right? But there was no direction based on who I was as a person before I get to, leading a house and leading a family. And I'm very interested to hear what the J&O show has to say about this, because I know that they're going to talk a lot about, bringing him and bringing her to a relationship and becoming one, and what that actually means and what it doesn't mean, right? Because a lot of times in dating, no one knows what to do in dating. First of all, that's why you need mentors, right? So if you don't have mentors, you may not be able to find mentors in the church. You may not be fit. So my answer to that is there's two points of reference here. One, are you a whole person before you even start seeking a relationship? That's number one. And that's from a spiritual standpoint, that's from a financial standpoint, that's from a personhood standpoint. Do you know who you are? And are you sure about that? And then when you're picking a mate, I think once you do the work on yourself and understand what you're looking for, now that search will become easier. But a lot of people, look for, women in the church to be these quote unquote women for them, but they don't know what they're looking for, and the women sometimes don't understand what they're looking for. So I guess that's my overall answer.
All right, teed it up perfectly for the J&O show. So I'll let you guys go next. The J&O show. What are your thoughts on that, fellas? We say 80% of the church are full of women, but I know collectively we all get together. We as men, we all say there are no women in church. So why is that the J&O show?
Okay. What happened was I was very, very, very much into the church all the way up through my early 30s. Born and raised, you would say I was born and raised in the church. My mother took me there. My dad eventually came. My whole family was involved. Dad's an elder, mom's a deaconess. I was the choir director. Like, we were in there. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I ain't been there in about 10 years. Just to be honest, partially my own walk with God changed, morphed. A lot of things were happening. Same. I was going through my own personal struggles. Like you were talking about becoming a whole person. I was going through depression. I was going through all of these things. I sort of isolated myself in a way. I was trying to figure out my purpose in life. I came up in a house where my parents were born in the 40s. My dad, 1943, my mother, 1946, down in the South. And so they're coming from environments where they basically taught into me what the world was like. And it was a little depressing, to be quite honest. And as I've come into myself, I've grown out of it. My relationship with God has expanded, gotten stronger. I've understood things that I did not know back then. And I started looking back into what everybody was talking about, what was going on in the church. And one of the things that I can say for churches that are not Muslim churches is that they became very imbued with feminist ideology. The problem with that is that some of it is toxic, just like if you go to some of these crazy manosphere stuff and they got toxic stuff over there. And what I saw is that a lot of guys were not there because they didn't feel like they had a place. And that's the feedback. Like I said, I ain't been there in about 10 years. but this is what people are saying. Like you go online, people are a lot more honest because there's no face. They're just keyboard warriors. So they're telling you how they really feel. And that's what I was told. And then I started thinking back when I was in there all the time, what was the church really like? And I was like, you know what? I can sort of see that because men were afraid to stand up and say anything that would offend the female population, because even back then it was mostly women. And that creates a problem because you don't want either side to be so scared to speak their mind in truth and honesty, not be a jerk, but to speak the truth and honesty about what they're thinking, what they want, and what they need. And they have to tiptoe because they're scared about the response and how harsh the response is. And that becomes the issue that I see going on in the church. I don't know if you have anything that you want to add. That was one of, I'm sure, many points, but that was just one thing.
I guess for me, the idea of there not being women in the church is kind of strange because I feel
not being, yeah.
Not enough,
go ahead.
not enough men.
Go ahead.
Oh, not enough men. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, pretty much to your point, what you shared as far as the church shares a lot of feminist views. So I feel like men, especially today in this day and age, men are just not really beat for it because we've evolved so much with social media, and there is a lot more conversation being had between the differences between men and women and how men have been treated over the years, and how, women have been treated and different things of that nature. They just feel as though it's not really a place for them because they can't really speak their mind. And if they do, then they're demonized for it. And so it's not a very welcoming environment unless you fall in line oftentimes with what the agenda is of that organization. And I mean, just to be quite frankly, when we think about church and just organizations and businesses in general, you want people there who are going to be able to give their financial support. And we know that women tend to be the ones who spend more. So you don't want to offend people who have the purchasing power or the buying power, just to be quite honest. And I think that that's a huge part in it as well.
I know she still go to church. She's still very active.
Yes, I still am very much active in church and attend church. And I just feel like we were actually just talking about this last night, about where are the men, basically, especially like in our age group, it's like they're non-existent. There's like maybe a handful here and there. And that's about it. Yeah,
there's a TD Jakes story that I think he mentioned at one point. We're gonna come back to the feminist aspect of church. Also, you said some very good points, Jermaine and Onika, and we're also gonna touch on a lot of that as well. Will, I'll tee you up next, okay? We all sit around and talk. We say there are no quality women in the bars and the clubs. We also say there are no quality women at church. So, Will, what's your take on this question in regards to that? About 80% of the Black church being full of women, but men, when we collectively get together, us upper caliber, higher caliber men, we say there are no women in church. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, for one, the short answer would be I think that really it comes down to there's not enough women that marriage-minded men want in church. That's different from saying that there aren't enough women in church. But larger than that, I would say that I think that the dominant liberal or secular society sort of dominates the church culture a lot more now than ever, right? So you're not really seeing that big of a difference between the quote unquote church girl from the quote unquote secular girl. And I'm sure you could say the same thing about the men too, right? So when you have that dynamic really dominating the church, there was a time, at least I remember from when I was a little kid, I remember hearing the older guys talk about how you're supposed to like the scene in Coming to America when they went to the church and, they're supposed to be going to find the good, wholesome girl in church, right? That movie's from the 80s. Right now, that's not really, the prevalent thing that you're going to find in church. So I just think that the secular world has dominated the church culture so much that now you're not really seeing a difference. So the guy's response to that is basically, there are no women in church, meaning there's no wives in church, or they're not seeing women that are wives in church unless they're already married. So I think that's what I would have to say regarding to that.
It's not necessarily that there are no women in church, there just are no women that we would consider worth marrying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was always a guy that went against the grain. Anybody that knows me knows that. I always kind of cause drama. I never minded being the one to say, there goes that guy, because I always like having those type of conversations. And ultimately, it got me the result that I wanted. So at the end of the day, be yourself. I do want to touch back, Will, on a couple of things that you said, but I want to loop Tatiana and Leo into this. So Leo, I'll let you go next, okay? 80% of the church are full of women, but when we all get together, we say there are no women in the church and there are no quality women in the church. Why is that, you think?
Well, I think all of your panelists have touched on some key points, which I do agree with. Well, let's just say that the family dynamics have changed, right? So we talk about singles ministry. Singles ministry is usually ran and dominated by women, right? But there was no need for singles ministry 60 years ago because of the basically setup of the family structure, husband, wife, children. And people would basically see that, hey, you're an ambitious, driven young man. She is a wholesome young lady, and they basically do the matchmaking. So what's happening is we have less men attending church, right? For various reasons. Feminism, the man has to, make a way to produce in order for him to have a family. So there are different dynamics that's occurring. But what I do notice, someone touched on the Muslim community. Their church, their worship is still male driven, and their marriages are basically, much higher than that in Christendom. So I think that the pattern that we used to have, where it was led by men will attract women, right? But I think the dynamics that we have it now, where it's predominantly women, that's not the case, And again, as being a part of singles ministry, I mean, a man can find him a wife inside of church, outside of church. He doesn't have to go to singles ministry, right, to find him a wife. And again, I have been a part of singles ministry. I can see why, it's not the quality that most men desire.
Yeah. Tatiana, I'll say the best for last or whatever. You're next. What's your take on that? As far as why is it that most of the church looks like you and Onika, but most men, when we get together, we say there are no women in church. What's your take on that?
Okay, so definitely agree. There are definitely a lot more women in the church. I think I'm leaning more towards the culture of the church has definitely changed, but I also think that it's changed in a way, even for women, and this is my opinion completely. I'm someone who grew up in the church, very, very, very strict family. And I feel like right now you'll see women they're either all the way right, and then you have all the way left. You don't find that balance. And even me as a woman, that, I haven't been active in the church for several years. There's nothing that right now is drawing me to just the practical application of life as a woman, as a female. And then, and you're not even seeing the males in there either. So you're not, even when it comes to your relationship with God or who God is, it doesn't seem to be as practical. You know, it's not, there's no way of, well, I won't say that there's not a way, we just don't talk about how applying it to real life. You see what I mean? And so I feel like women also, you absolutely will see the all the way right, you'll see the all the way left, you know? And so where's that middle ground? Where's that, you know, I feel like it's not there anymore.
I got you.
I honestly, I don't even know if it was always there. This is just from the time that growing up in the church, I almost always felt this disconnect where everything was okay, Bible, and even applying Bible to your life was a little bit, I don't know, it was more up in the air than, okay, no, this is reality. So.
I got you. As far as that, you touched, Leo, you touched on something earlier about Muslim gentlemen. Just for everyone who knows, I briefly considered converting to Islam in my early 20s when I got really deep into like boxing and kickboxing and stuff like that. I hung out with a lot of Muslim guys. And one thing that's actually interesting in the Muslim community right now, at least in the Nation of Islam, a large percentage of them guys are going to like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq to find their wives because the women in America do not want to convert to what they consider a misogynistic version of religion to be. So it's interesting, Leo, that you said that the Muslim church right now is booming, well, as far as their families, because it's ran by men. In reality, to some extent, a lot of Muslim guys, they were the original passport bros that I ever heard of as far as going to other countries to find their wives. So to me, it's like across the board, whether it's Islam or whether it's Christianity, our families are not getting married. And as I said, I wanted to have this conversation because I think that's something that we had better change if we want our communities to move forward.
So let me dive into that a little bit. So any religion, or so let's talk about the Jewish religion, the Muslim religion, and Christianity, right? So basically, they have the same root, okay? And they were basically patriarchal, right? Led by men. There was a structure, there was a pattern, and it has proven successful for generations, for centuries. As of late, there has been a shift, all right? More so with Christianity, not so much with our Jewish brothers, not so much with our Islamic brothers, but with Christianity, we're the one that feeling the impact the most. We're the one that having the issues when it comes to family, when it comes to our community, right? So we notice that I know a lot of Christian men who are now converting to Islam. You are converting to become Jews, and and they're finding families, because what they were brought up on, what they study in the Bible is not what they're seeing in their present life.
I think there is definitely an element to that, Leo, but I'll also say this, just from a guy who I was in the church when I actually came back into the church in my late 20s, early 30s. I mean, I looked around for 5 or 6 years to find my wife, and eventually I did. I became the version of a man that I knew a women would like, and as a result, it gave me the options to pick and choose, okay, who do I actually want to marry, who do I not want to marry? I think as a man, if you take care of your body, you're educated, you take care of your investments, you basically become the best version of yourself, you eventually are going to start having women approach you, period. I remember when I first kind of came back into the church, I can't tell you how many men approached me and said, okay, Chris, your standards are too high. You need to basically find one of these women that already have kids and marry one of them and settle. And I told the guy, you did that for your wife, and I said, your marriage is going, I'm not doing that for mine. And I refuse to settle. So as a result, women that I met like legit at bars, at lounges, at clubs, at LA Fitness, at wherever, I invited them to quote unquote church with me. And eventually I got to the point where I found my wife. I didn't find her in those venues, but I eventually found my wife. So I think as men, just by doing the things I talk about, become the best version of yourself, you're going to open yourself up to a large possibility of women, and you can pick and choose and hopefully convert who you want, because that's what these other denominations I think are doing to some of our quote unquote better men and better women. Rashad, and the J&O show, you guys mentioned something earlier. Do you think that one reason why a lot of our pastors, such as the mega pastors, are not talking out about the quote unquote rise of feminism in our churches is because if 80% of the church are full of women and they are the ones doing the tithing and offering, you do not want to essentially piss off your largest financial component? Do you think there's a reason why a lot of our pastors are not talking about, are not kind of calling out the foolishness that they're saying with feminism in our church? Shad, you raise your hand, I'll let you go first, bro.
let me just say this, and I think I shared this on the last show. I don't think Jermaine or Anika, I don't think y'all were here, but I'm gonna say this. I was watching The Breakfast Club with TD Jakes, and I don't have anything against TD Jakes. I think he's a good guy, but it was interesting, how this quote that he said, and this will speak to Chris what you just asked, why they don't want to speak against feminism, and to your point, Anika, earlier. TD Jakes said, I don't know why the Black church has become the place where Black people come to get all their problems solved. Right? And I was like, well, that's interesting, because financially speaking, the Black church accumulates over $1.6 billion a year in tithing and giving to the church. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why, TD Jakes, because you become a part of their bills monthly. Right? What are you talking about? Right? And it's just this, this ignorance, right? Where it's like, are you for real? And we get to a place where he can, that was the first aha moment. The second one was, this man can sit on a nationally syndicated radio show and say that out of his mouth and still go to church the next Sunday and still rack up all of that dough. Right? That is the silk, screen that we have over our faces right now, where if Black men, were, kind of sitting there that were not being paid by him, right? Mm-hmm. Asking mm-hmm. him questions about like, well, what are you doing with this particular, because this is the other thing. He also said that right after he just talked about how many houses he's building for, women of this kind and single mothers and all of that. He's doing some great work and all of that. But you say it tongue in cheek, because it's like you do the work, but then you're like, I don't understand why they come to us for all of their problems, but I guess we'll solve them. Like, you're doing us a favor. Nobody asked you to be a pastor. This is something that you said that you were ordained to do. What are you talking about? Then you say that on national television. I'm like, yo. And so again, those are the sorts of things that if I was sitting in his church, again, you see how my mind is, I would literally walk up to him, because that man put on his pants just like I put on my pants. I don't care how much money you make. Yep. What you have to answer for this, right? And see, the thing is, he don't want to sit around and talk to people like me and Will and you, Chris, and all of that. They're not going to want to talk to that. So again, if we're in his church and we're asking him questions about that, because the thing is, well, if that's the case, TD Jakes, and I'll shut up after this. If that's the case, TD Jakes, and the brother, what's the brother's name down in Atlanta that got that big church? I can't remember. Is it Creflo? Yeah. First of all, his name's Creflo Dollar. That's a whole nother story for another day. But I'll say this. In all trueness and honesty, y'all, for real, if these people have thousands of people in their church, right? So how much will we be willing to bet that there are plenty of doctors, lawyers, builders, people that build houses, do plumbing, dentists? No one should be sick, poor, unhealthy, underread, not financially wealthy and stable, because you have literally your community right there in the church. So I have no problem with tithing, right? But my thing is, there should be no one paying for college tuition, none of that stuff, because you've created that network inside of your church. So if there's any member that's lacking in any area that you don't offer in your church, I have a problem with that. You see what I'm saying?
I feel you. I've always wondered, as a person who obviously does finance and everything, why we don't have like weekly financial sessions with financial consultations and stuff like that with financial professionals. I mean, literally, I always tell people straight up, look, if you want to get wealthy, do 3 things, okay? 4 things: spend less money than you make, max out your 401k, or put as much as you possibly can into it. At the time of this recording, you can put $22,500 into your 401k. Max out your Roth IRA. At the time of this recording, it's $6,500. Max out your HSA. If you're married, it's $7,200 a year. If you're single, it's $3,600 per year. If you do those 3 things, if you max out all 4 of those accounts or whatever, you put them in the right index funds, and me and Will, we can walk you through which index funds those are off record, offline or whatever. We can basically make you a millionaire in 10 years. So I've always wondered, why in the Black church are we not having these types of conversations literally every other Sunday, every other Saturday, every other Sabbath or whatever? I mean, seriously, these are the kind of conversations we should be having, but we're not having it. And I don't honestly know why. Okay, you got 2 kids that are going to college. start a 529, start a UTMA, start a UGMA, start a UTMA. There are certain things you can do from a tax perspective to literally put your generations in the next financial stratosphere. But we don't have these type of conversations at our churches, and our communities are struggling because of it. Will, you as well, you mentioned that a lot of the times our churches don't want to talk about, I would say, feminism, because there could possibly be an element they didn't want to offend our women that make up 8% of our church. Do you believe there's any truth to that, or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what I said earlier, right? The dominant secular society sort of controls what's happening inside the church. So if you're talking about a business, which a church at its core competency is, right, you're not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize the top line revenue of that said business. And top line revenue is generated through the women. So everything has to be bent towards not potentially hurting the person who's actually, driving the revenue, right? So now you're taking a simple business concept that's now hovering over the church, and that's sort of dictating sort of the route in which things are actually done inside the church, and the men are, more or less paying the price for that. And even the women indirectly are paying the price for that, because now you have men who are the, the higher caliber, higher earning men who are basically saying, hey, I'm not necessarily finding the value in being here the way I need to achieve in my said life. I'm going to find it other places. For people who are for or against the Black manosphere or whatever, I will say this: that is the only place within the Black culture where Black men's issues are at the forefront. Straight Black men's issues are at the forefront. There's no other place in any institution, whether it's the church, whether it's the school, whether it's the community at large, where straight Black men's experiences are at the forefront. So people don't necessarily like the Black manosphere because of quote unquote misogynistic things that come out of it, whatever. And of course, there's always going to be crazy people. But the point is, men's thoughts, men's experiences, men's feelings are all put at the forefront, and nobody has really taken time to really care about what straight Black men are feeling, thinking, experiencing, such and so forth. And that's not even the church. So guys are not going to flock to that.
And Will, you're saying straight Black men, so you're saying
straight Black men.
Yeah, heterosexual.
Heterosexual man. Okay,
cool. Yeah,
Shout out to
heterosexual.
Kevin Samuels.
Yeah. Peace to the Godfather. Godfather. Tatiana, I'll let you go next on this one and everything. Do you think that there is an element that the Creflo Dollars, the TD Jakes, even the Joel Osteens, I'm be honest with you, the white pastors, they're not bringing this stuff up either. Do you think there is an element that they are scared to talk about, quote unquote, toxic feminism inside the churches because women make up 80% of their tithe dollars? Do you think there's an element to that as well, Tatiana?
I absolutely do. I definitely do. I think it has, it contributes to the problem. Absolutely.
Got you. Let's keep it moving. Let's go to this question. Fellas, you see the perfect woman in church. She got the perfect face, the hourglass body. She got the assets that you like. She lines up with your spiritual beliefs. She's faithful. She's loyal. She's friendly. Only thing is, she comes with the kid. Would you date her for marriage? Why or why not? Leo, I'm gonna let you go first with this one.
So, it depends. Ultimately, generally, I prefer not. However, if the father, and I hope husband is deceased, if he's passed, if he's dead, then that would be something I would consider. But if it's more or less, as the statistic shows, basically unwed, carrying before marrying, most likely not.
All right, short to the point. Jermaine, I'm gonna let you and on the J&O show go next on this one. Yeah, you see the perfect woman for you. Obviously, Nika, no disrespect. But Jermaine, you see the perfect woman, you know what you like, so I'm not even going to explain it. Only thing is, she comes with the kid. Jermaine, would you talk to her, yes or no?
Oh man. When I go back to before we were married, and I had situations to come across a lot of those women when I was in church, because I was one of the few guys in my age range that were there. It was a very small amount of us. There was a whole bunch of women. A bunch of them had kids and stuff like that. Mind you, I did not know what I was doing. I never knew nothing about no red pill. None of that stuff was even on my radar back then. Going back 20, 25, 10 years. So we going back a little bit. And with avoiding women with kids without realizing what I was doing. I would just automatically just like, I would see a woman about, oh, she cute. She like, oh, you gotta, no. And I did it. And it wasn't not even intentional. It wasn't like, now there's a whole philosophy to it with a lot of the manosphere, the red pill, all of the things. Like you're hearing a lot of men speak about it. They're starting to figure out what men and women want, and that's becoming more of a public knowledge thing as opposed to something that the scientists would have over in the corner and nobody would ever hear about. And I was just automatically doing it without even realizing what I was doing, because if I would go and hang out with them, like we would hang out in large groups. If I would go and I would hang out with them, I would see what the single moms would be dealing with the kids and what will be going on, as opposed to a woman who was maybe a little bit less attractive, a woman who maybe, didn't have the perfect hourglass, but she was single, she was available, but she still had the personality. She still knew how to be the type of woman that I would want her to be. I would go down on the looks department. I would go down on the physicality department, because I have to think, dag, am I going to try to insert myself into this young child's life? And how is that going to look? As a dad crazy? Like all of these things are going through my mind. And I automatically, without thinking about it, would just back off of the situation just because I didn't want any part of that life. I will make a disclaimer. I went to church in Newark, New Jersey. So it was a little different because the baby daddy might have shot you. So it was a little different than just regular drama. So for me, it was a heightened level of, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting shot. Ain't no drive-bys happening because I'm dating your baby mama. We good. So it was a little different. Some people, they don't have to deal with it in that extreme, but I still understand the mindset.
Right. Definitely. Hey, Will, I'm gonna let you go on this one as well. You see the perfect woman for you. And from a physical perspective, living in Miami, obviously, you can see that all the time. From a physical perspective, she lines up with everything. She's physically exactly what you want. Spiritually, she's exactly what you want. And you believe her, she's faithful and she's loyal. But she comes with a kid. Would you spit game to her and pursue her for marriage? Yes or no?
No. For the same reason Jermaine said, when I was younger, I grew up in church in New York City. So similar experience, but I think my church was a little bit more multicultural, I guess you could say. But regardless, I would never do it. I always saw the concept of dating a woman with kids as settling for me, especially while I didn't have any kids. Just because it just creates so many issues that I don't necessarily have to deal with in my personal life, or if I dealt with a woman who didn't have any kids. So even from young, I never ever considered that. And now that I'm older and I have better options available to me because I've raised my personal value, then no, it would never be a consideration for me. Got you.
Tatiana, Onika, what are your thoughts hearing the brothers on this platform say that they would not consider talking to a woman that has kids? Because I believe both of you two do. What's your thought process on that?
I think it's when I first the first time I heard that, I thought it was very depressing. I'm not gonna lie. On the other hand, on the flip side, well, I'll start with this. I think it's very depressing because as a single mom with kids, myself also open to, relationship and eventually marriage as well, then it's like, okay, well, is there any hope? Right? Because at the same time, not every woman, that you're portraying is that way. Okay. So speaking from, point of view as a single mom with kids, still keeping the values, high values, core values, all of that also in place. It's not every, single mom Now, at the same time, on the flip side, I do have to say it's also a shock because, see, I was married before. Both of my kids have the same father. Okay. And so coming out of that marriage, and now all of a sudden, you're single, having to take care of these kids and all of that, then you start also seeing the other side as well. I can understand where you guys are coming from. You have the baby daddy issues. Who wants to deal with, or who's prepared to deal with that if you have not even been a father yourself at all, So I get that part. Not everybody has that baby daddy issue. So to be able to say that, oh, you know what, I would never do it, I think it's a bit harsh, but at the same time, I can understand.
Got you.
Yeah, and I would say I agree with your sentiment, definitely. I know the first time I think we watched a video on YouTube basically talking about men, they would never date a woman who has children. I thought that was kind of harsh and sad as well. I grew up in a single parent household, and I know the type of woman that my mother is. And for me to hear that, it's just like, well, wow, because she doesn't fit into that narrative whatsoever, as far as having baby daddy drama and this, that, and the third. My mother was married, what I'm saying, and things of that nature. So it's just not everybody fits in that mold, just to your point. However, at the same time, I do understand for a guy, it's just well, if I don't have kids of my own, then, and I chose to not have children for a particular reason, maybe I'm not ready for it, or I want to be able to have my own children with my wife. I want that to be something that I want us to experience together for the first time. I can understand that. But it's just, I think everything is not for everybody. And I do think that sometimes social media could be a gift and a curse because it constantly pushes certain things out there that may or may not be true. And the ones that are true, sometimes I feel like it's magnified, because even when we talk about the different types of women out there in the feminist movement and things of that nature, not all women fall into that category. Not all women are feminist. Not all women are straight, modern, far right, women. There's a lot of hybrids, and people that are in between. And so I think just being open-minded and understanding where you are personally in your life, and understanding that none of us are perfect, I think is something that needs to be taken into consideration, because you never know the person that you come across, whether it's someone with a child or without a child, the type of person that they are, the caliber that they are, and the type of connection that you could potentially have. You can have an amazing relationship with someone who has a kid, but you would never know that if you're just completely closed off to it. I think to Leo's point, I believe earlier, he was saying kind of depending upon the situation, maybe if the father, he mentioned if the father was deceased or something like that, or the husband passed away. But I think if you just kind of got the opportunity to maybe know the person, and kind of see maybe what that situation is, not necessarily you start dating them and find out, but if you could, I don't know, find all that information out maybe beforehand, but just not being completely closed off to the idea. I don't know. That's just my thought process when it comes to that.
I got you. Let me ask you ladies this as well. If you had a son and he had two women that were approaching him, one came with a kid and the other did not come with a kid, and both of the women, same sexual marketplace values, both of them socioeconomically made the same amount of money, both of them lined up with his spiritual beliefs, whatever they were, would you want your son talking to the woman that had a kid or the woman that did not have a kid? Tatiana, what do you say to that?
That's tough because I have a son. And I'm also a single mom too, but I've been on both sides, so I would handle that very carefully. Seriously, I would have to handle that very carefully, because yes, at the beginning, when you first start thinking about it, yeah, okay, if they're the same and whatnot, you would probably tell them to go with the person that has no, kids and whatnot. But at the same time, being the single mom as well, my position where I'm at, and also just knowing my history as well, I would have to be careful as well as to not to close his mind off, because they're also good women. You never know their past. You don't know what got them into that situation that they're in right now. So I would have to be, I would handle it very carefully.
Chris, let me say something really quick.
Yeah.
For sure.
And this is kind of a question that I guess it can go to the ladies, but I guess they can kind of go to everybody. And it's basically set around this. I always hear with women, there's certain things that can always be a hard line. Meaning, let's talk the easy part, the money aspect, right? When it comes to marrying, women more or less have a hard line of what number they're going to marry.
100,000, 6 figures.
Right? Whatever the number is, there's a hard line. But whenever a man has a hard line, there's always, well, you guys should consider this, and it depends on that, and not everybody. There's always some sort of reason or rationale for men to look beyond whatever our hard line stance is. I'm not cut from that mold. I'm gonna tell you what the line is, and that's it. And marriage, I was listening to Dr. Tiasan Johnson. For those who don't know, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, he is a African American Studies professor at the University of California, Berkeley, I think it is.
Brother
and
got dreads?
Yeah, exactly. He has dreads, and his focus is particularly on African male studies.
Yes.
And one of the podcasts I listened to him talking about months ago was talking about how marriage is becoming more for the elitist group. Whereas, 50, 60 years ago, the average group of people could get married. But because now standards are going up, now let's say for women, for example, they don't want to necessarily marry the average guy. They want to marry the elite guy. Fine. So the men who actually want to get married, why is it not okay for him to say, you know what, I want to marry the elite women. I don't want to marry the average women. And to us, the elite women are the women who are younger, who don't have kids, who are fit, everything else that everybody's heard, the fit, feminine, friendly, submissive, this and that, right? I'm not budging off of that. If I've moved up into that elite category and I'm not in the average group of men, I'm not picking out of the average group of women. I'm picking out of the elite group of women. And women who have children are not in the elite group of women for me. That doesn't mean that's not the case for everybody. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna keep it a buck with all of y'all. The guys that's in that group, they think the same way.
Got you.
Absolutely.
Good point, Will. Good point. Rashad, you raised your hand. Go ahead, brother. What do you got to say on this?
I'm gonna let the sister comment. You asked her first. I'm gonna let her go, and then I'll go.
Cool.
No, I was just gonna say I disagree with you, Will. I don't think that that most women believe that men have to make 6 figures. No, actually, I think you said 6 figures specifically, Chris. I don't think most women think that. I feel as though that's a narrative that's being pushed right now in the
whatever the number is, there's a hard line, baseline. That's my point. Every woman has a baseline that they're going to deal with. But when men have a baseline of what we're going to deal with, no, you should be flexible. You should think about this and that. Our baseline is never just.
But the same thing can be said. The same thing can be said with women when it comes to men. Men are like, oh well, I hear men are like, oh, okay, well, a brother has potential and he might just be making 30,000 now. You can work with him. You should stick with him. Because he can end up making more money. I feel as though that can go both ways. I think it just goes. I think it depends on the individual. And I do understand that men in a certain stratosphere, like the Godfather, rest in peace, Canvas Sanders would say, high value men, when you make a certain amount of money and you've done certain things for your communities and you're in a certain position, yes, you have your pick of the litter when it comes to the type of women that you have access to. So yeah, why would you, pick someone that has a child when you can find someone who doesn't have a child that has all of the other attributes and characteristics that you would want? I get that, but I don't necessarily think that that's a truism where all women are just like, no, you got to make X amount of money in order for me to date you. I feel that that's not true. I put it to you like this: the people that I'm around, the people that I'm in community, that I'm in community with, the people that I've grown up with, I've never heard any of the women ever say, oh, well, if he's not making X amount of money, I'm not dating him. I'm not marrying him. Hard no. I've never heard that. I only hear that in social media.
Well, Nika, I know some of the women that you hung out with. I know a few of them. I'm not gonna say their names. They flat out have told me you got to make $100,000 to talk to me. And these women are like 45 and dying alone. So I've seen it. I have seen it, Onika. I'm not
My
gonna
boy
say
said I've seen enough.
Yeah.
He said I've seen enough. So can I comment on this? So
absolutely. Go ahead, Shout out to Leo.
First of all, Will, would you say his name is T. Hassan?
Dr. T. Hassan Johnson.
Hassan
So the letter
Johnson.
T, then Hassan Johnson.
Let me tell you this, man. It's so crazy that you mentioned that today on this podcast, because I was on I just strolled across one of his videos on YouTube randomly, and I'm getting ready to purchase his book now, right? But he was talking about misandry at the time. And if for those of you that don't know what misandry is basically the hatred of black men, right? And basically how women are conditioned and how men are conditioned in a household growing up in a single parent household, right? So the women are conditioned most times to be these, to be these rock stars, basically, for whatever that means, whether she's into gymnastics or intellectually sound or whatever have you. And if you're a boy and you're athletically inclined, the community knows what to do with you, right? But if you're intellectually inclined, there's vast amount of criticism that's going to come your way because of that, right? So to his point, and it's a wonderful video. I can share it with Chris, so you can share it with the rest of the group. But basically, if you at some point, if you're a male in that family and there are a lot of women in your community, you have two choices: either you become feminine acting, or you just you just dwindle on down into nothingness, right? And not understand your manhood until you come to fruition about who you are. And I thought that was very interesting, because again, when we started the conversation about dating and personhood and all this sort of stuff, you have to really look at how men are raised, and specifically how black men are raised in our community. So when we get to the dating arena and we start talking about dating overall, this is to Kevin Samuel's point. See, a lot of people didn't like the way that he put his stuff and all this sort of stuff, and they missed the point, which I also think in our community, we don't do a good job of understanding the points that are being made, right, as a community of people. But what he was basically saying is, you don't have to go for the elite brother, right? The brother that's the top 1 or 2% in his career or in his field. He was saying that there were brothers making between, I think the average, Chris, is what, like 40,000 or something like that?
42,000.
42,000.
Average woman is 28.
Right. So 42,000 to 90,000, if that was the window. He was saying that there are plenty of brothers to date right here. Why don't y'all just date them, put your money together, and y'all grow something? But to your point, Onika, I think that social media has made it where some of our young ladies are paying attention to the Cardi B's of the world or whatever, that are marrying these rap stars and all of that, and they are setting their standards up like this. And I just want to say this, is that you don't have to be a rock star as a male to have your choice and pick of women. That example that Chris used, if you got 2 women walking up, it's more like 10 women walking up with four of them being mothers of children, and the rest of them being single women. You see what I'm saying? I don't think we talk enough about how outnumbered we are as men in relating in the dating pool as women. So the thing is, if you have a child, fine, but you made your choice. I can't help the choice that you made, or that, that whatever. And I don't mean to sound mean like this, but the thing is, bottom line, life is competitive. Because my thing is, if I was in jail and didn't have a job or something like that, there's a hard line, like Will is saying, that some women just flat out wouldn't date me. Right. And that always is going to occur in the pecking order. Right. I don't know how many women have looked over me because they wanted to date Pookie and Ray Ray. Right. And then when they found out it didn't work with Pookie and Ray Ray, now it's like, well, Rashad, what was I supposed to do with my feelings once they left, right? So the thing is that this is why somebody said marry before you carry, or marry before you carry. Before you carry. There has to be, and I put this in our chat over here on the side, but there has to be some rules and order in the Black community that we all must follow and be governed towards. Because again, that silent hand of the government and how it plays a role in splitting us up has not only split us up, but it also, to somebody else said something about our historical component, where we were married at almost 70, 80% in the 40s and the 50s and stuff. What happened right there? What happened in that time period right there to now, that where we're now like, oh, we're not good enough for one another, right? Everybody on planet Earth outside of the Black community understands that we need to be together, except for Black people, and they all come from us. Right. And it's crazy. It's just insane. So I just wanted to say that.
There's a lot, Rashad, I want to piggyback on, but Leo, you had your hand up, bro. I want to be respectful. Go ahead. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, to address something that Rashad said, and Kevin Samuel said it best, the average woman does not date the average man. They're hypergamous, okay? So they date up. And so even if you guys are on the same level, then, she wouldn't be interested. However, I just want to ask a question if you have time. Have any of the gentlemen dated a single mother before? And did that inform their perspective?
I'll go first because I'm the host. I had a very brief situationship with a single mother. Eventually got to the point I was just like, this is a wrap. I can find women that are a lot less drama, and I got up out of there very quickly. That was the extent of my dating baby mamas. So I'll just leave it at that.
So that confirmed your pre-existing understanding.
Yeah, because like her father thought that I should be the baby's father. And I'm like, I'm not. And then on top of that, her baby daddy was a plumb fool, and I'm not that guy. So I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to get locked up dealing with this guy. And then on top of that, I was like, why in the world am I wasting no offense to the ladies, why am I wasting my time with the woman that comes with a kid when I can easily pull when I'm pulling women that don't have kids? That was just my mindset with it. That was my take on it, Leo.
Go ahead, Will.
Personally, I remember talking to a girl, and she actually, she wasn't a single mother, but she had parental guardianship over her nephew, because her sister, which was her nephew's mother, obviously, she had some drug addiction problems, whatever. So the girl I was talking to at the time, she essentially took over custodial parenthood over the child. So even just seeing the dynamic of what she would have to deal with, even just on a nightly basis, if I'm talking to her on the phone and I hear her, trying to discipline the boy or trying to get him ready for bed or get him to do his homework, whatever, like that day-to-day aspect of what she had to deal with, just with that, I couldn't even put myself necessarily in that situation. And I knew that was just going to be for a temporary amount of time, because eventually, the child will go back over to her mother. But for me, just seeing that dynamic, that turned me off. And I must have been, 24, 25 at the time. I'm 39 now. So, just seeing that limited experience for me, that's the closest I ever got to dating a single mother. But just that limited experience for me kind of helped confirm what I was already thinking beforehand.
And I'll go briefly. I've tried to, as I just told you, I tried to date single mothers, and they didn't want me because they want the Poopy and Ray Rays, right? Of the world. And that was unfortunate for them and for me, because I really liked them, you know what I'm saying? And at the time I was just like, all right, cool. But here's a nightmare situation. I have a friend who is married to what was a single mother and married the mother. And now she thinks she's a single woman. So she leaves him at home with that child, and she traveling the world. It's like, wait a minute. And then when he talks to her about this thing, she like, well, I didn't get a chance to do this type of attitude. I'm like, that's something that people don't think about, right? That could turn into that situation that, again, to everybody on the panel, it's not that you can't be dated and can't be married as a single mother. There has to be a conversation as to how you think this should go, because to Will's point as well, when you're, if you have a young man, men know structure. So if he out of whack over here, are you gonna let me whoop his tail? Are you gonna let me discipline him like the man that he's like men? Because we all know what undisciplined men turn up to be. We already know what time it is, right? So when I'm whooping his tail, are you gonna get in the way, or are you gonna let me raise this person that you said is my son at this point, right? So all of those conversations have to be put into play. So it's not just, you're right, ladies, that it's not just as simple as that, but that's a gift and a curse type of statement, because it's not as simple as that, when it could just be simple as, if I see Misha over here, she got kids, and Veronica don't, I thought about this with this conversation, and I'm gonna just go for Veronica because I don't want to have to deal with that. You see?
Got you.
Let me just give my experience. So I dated a single mom, and everything was cool. And the thing is, the son, I mean, he was a great kid. He was smart. He was athletic. There were times I would call the house, and you know, I would just talk to him. However, the mother, you know, she had issues, and the struggle was, you know, it felt like I was also hurting the kid, because I knew that the relationship between she and I would not last. And so I had to become, there's an attachment, there was a bond between me and her son. And so, and the mom knew about it. And so sometimes she would try to say, well, you know, he needs a father figure, put out that guilt, that pressure on me, you know, because she saw the writing on the wall that, you know, basically I was no longer interested, but she knew that I would be a good example for her son, and her son basically admired me. So, you know, that's one of the reasons, you know, from my experience, that I don't date single mothers, because I do not want the children get attached to me quickly, you know, and of course I get attached to them as well. So yeah, so basically I'm just trying to say that it's not just basically manosphere stuff or theory. Some of us had real life experience. Why we don't date single moms.
Yep, for sure. Anybody that knows me, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. I've done finance and I have an MBA. I've done engineering for over 20 years. I live in a world full of numbers. 1 + 1 for me is always going to be 2. It's a black and white world. I'm an engineer. I'm an analytical brother. That's how God made me. So to anybody that's listening, if you are a man and you want to step up to the quote unquote step up to the plate and date a woman who comes with a kid, this is what you're looking at paying. From 0 to 18, you will be paying $250,000 over the course of that time period. So on a month per month basis, that is $1,160. And that's if the child you're trying to step in and raise basically goes to public schools, drives used vehicles, does not get personal trainers, does not get personal tutors. They basically drive the bus to school. You're looking at spending $1,160 or $1,200 a month to raise another man's child. If you're more of an affluent type brother, you make more cake, you make more money, you want your child to get personal trainers so they can basically be a starting quarterback, possibly a high school point guard, things of that nature. You want them to basically have tutors and things of that nature, get chefs, nutritionists. You're looking at spending $350,000 from 0 to 18, or roughly $1,600 per month. So I always tell ladies, because right now there's this agenda to tell men that you need to be you need to step up to the plate and help raise another man's kids. I always tell women, you're basically telling a guy who did not impregnate you that he's gonna have to spend roughly $1,200 to $600 to raise a child that's not his. And most men, I'm telling you, ladies, are not going to do that. I understand the agenda out here and social media is telling you that guys should be bending over backwards to help raise your kids. But ladies, from the brothers that I roll with and from the men on this panel, that's not something that most men are going to do. And then purely from a physical perspective, when a woman comes to the kid, and to all my married people, all of us who already have kids, we know this. When the babies show up, that's when the marathon sex to some extent kind of stops. You're not having it from the kitchen to the bedroom to the bathroom to the couch, that kind of stuff.
Talk about it.
Got 2-year-olds running across the floor. So, ladies, if you come with a kid, your man knows that the porno sex, he's probably not going to be having it with you. So I'm telling you, I know I'm joking when I'm saying this, ladies. But you come with a child, that is a serious issue among every culture in the world. And it blows my mind that in this current agenda that we live in, there's seriously this agenda that's kind of pushing men to marry women that come with other men's kids. And in no culture in any society is that kind of acceptable. I'm just being honest with you. So I wanted to give the factual reasons from a financial standpoint about, as well as the practical reasons. Okay. So let's go to the next question.
Chris, can I say something real quick? Just want to say, I'm not saying that single men should marry. I'm not trying to push a narrative that single men should marry women with children. I'm just saying, be open to the idea. Never say never is basically the bottom line, or the easiest way to put it over. Is all.
I got you. Yeah. I got you, Anika. I got you. The last thing I'll say is this, Rashad, you touched on this as well. When you factor in dudes that are gay, guys that are in prison, guys that are like me that are married, men that basically have no penis, dudes that are, I don't know, are mentally retarded, guys that are, I don't know, like Catholic priest celibate type brothers and have completely abstained from sex. There are roughly 10 heterosexual women for every one heterosexual man. And if you live in cities like Atlanta, it's like 15-1. So ladies, I get it that you've been taught by Disney and all this kind of stuff that you're the quote unquote prizes to be won. But when in reality, once again, if you're a heterosexual man and you take care of your body, you're educated, and you basically are doing what you should be doing from a financial standpoint, and let's say you quote unquote stack over 6 figures, you can literally pick and choose what caliber, what color, what race, and what religion of woman that you can date. So be honest with yourselves as far as what the statistics are. Literally, it is 10-1 if you live in a Midwestern city. It's probably like 15-20-1 if you live in like the Miamis, the DCs, the Chicagos, the New Yorks. And I've lived in all those cities. So sometimes I think we kind of have to honestly be realistic about what we're doing. Rashad, go really quickly. I want to go to the next question because I want to be respectful of you guys' time, okay?
Real quick. Ladies, and this is something y'all can say at the end or put it in the comments. And this is a real question I have for some of our sisters out there. Do women actually know the competition that they actually have for real? Like, do they really know how many women there are in the world?
Great question.
And and how impactful your choices are in being totally missed in the pecking order in terms of like selection when it comes to that. And y'all can answer that now, or you can answer that later, because I know Chris is on a time schedule as well. But I truly want to know that. Do they take that into consideration? Do most women, when you're in your groups and you're talking about dating and stuff like that, does that ever come up? And the question is, do you guys know that you should be in competition, and do you know how many people are competing for the spots that you're talking about occupying?
Great question.
Nika, you want to chime in on that?
I think it depends on the circle of women you hang around, to be honest. I don't think by and large that a lot of women necessarily think about the competition that's out there, to be quite honest. And then also, I think it depends on the age range as well. I think the older that women are getting, they're understanding the dynamic and they're understanding the competition that's out there. Like they're seeing that it's real in these streets, as far as like the options that they have when it comes to the type of men that they would want. And I'm not even talking about necessarily like, a high value man where he has to have 6 figures, 6 feet, this, that, and the third. Not even that, just having a decent man. I really think that age plays a huge part in that. Understanding the reality of what you have around you. So it kind of just depends on what demographic of women you're speaking to. I think younger women know. I don't think they realize that. I think women in their I'd say probably early teenage years to mid 20s or so, maybe even some late 20s. I don't really think that they necessarily have a great concept of that. But when you start talking to women who are maybe late 30s and up, they're starting to see and understand that because they see that the wall, is coming, basically, where they've come to that point in their life where it's just like, man, I'm not like 21 anymore, where I'm not like, looking a certain way and the guys are not banging down my door like they used to be. And, it's hard for me to find a decent man.
But that's where I think our culture is missing the ball at, because those older women need to be talking to those younger women about getting married early. Because the thing is,
you and I both know, Rashad, they're not going to do that. Why? Because if a 40-year-old woman puts a 22-year-old woman on game, that 42-year-old woman now can keep the 22-year-old for the 30-year-old man.
Because here's the thing. I work with college students, so I understand that 20 game, right? Like what they, where their minds are. But the crazy part is that they think in their minds that getting a man through sex and getting a man to keep you is the same thing. That's not the same thing, right? So you get in them 20s, because don't get me wrong, if this is the league, you've been the top player for 10, 15 years at this point. So men be coming at you trying to get sex, and you don't understand how to keep a man versus, how to get him to keep you versus having sex with you. So I think that's the hole right there that needs to be filled in that particular term, where, older women that realize that should be teaching those younger women. And not to say it's not happening, but I just want to comment.
Yeah. You said an interesting point, Rashad. I remember when I was in my late teens, I hung out. I mean, obviously we all played sports. So you were hanging out with guys who basically all were hustling, selling drugs, doing whatever. And I would have guys put me aside and be like, look, dude, you're smart. I see where you're going. Why are you hanging out with these dudes? Stop hanging out with them. You get away from them guys immediately. My cousin's the same thing. All right, Chris, we're going to this party. You can come, but you ain't riding in the same car with us. I knew exactly why they were telling me that. So old guys, my OGs, they would pull me to the side and keep game and say, stop talking to that girl. She's a hood rat. She's a baby mama. Stop talking to her. I don't want to see you talking to her right now. And they would give me game as far as what I was doing wrong and what I was doing right. And that kind of saved me from a lot of problems. An issue that I'm kind of seeing in our community is that while older Black men will pull younger dudes like myself to the side and say what you should and shouldn't be doing, I don't see that happening, unfortunately, with our older women. I was talking to a young lady the other day on social media. She's 45, and I'm like, look, lady, you're acting like you're 25 and you're 45. I didn't want you when you were 25 or whatever, and I definitely don't want you now. So what are you doing? No man basically is gonna want a 45-year-old woman acting like she's 25 when you can pull a 25-year-old who actually is 25. And this woman basically refuses to actually try to educate the younger generation. She says, Chris, if I tell them what I know, they're going to be competing against me for men like yourself, or for guys that are quote unquote higher caliber. And to me, that's a problem in our community. Older women aren't teaching younger women the game. That's my thoughts on it. What do you think? What do you guys think?
Older.
Let me jump in.
Yeah, go ahead. Leo.
But a lot of programming. I mean, we have How Stella Got Our Groove Back. That's like a anthem, in our community.
And the color purple.
Oh, color purple, right?
Yeah.
So we see that a lot of older women are competing with these younger women, and then we have this, I don't know, the BBL craze that's going on, getting body augmentation. So there is like you can see a lot of competition and even envy, the old against the young, and then there is the 80-20, 80% of the women are after 20% of a type of guy, a type of man, so it's chaotic.
Got you. All right, let's move on to the next question, because I want to respect everybody's time. Good points, everybody. Good points. Ladies, this is for Tatiana. This is for Anika. You see the perfect man at church. He's tall. He's athletic. He's nice looking. He takes care of his body. Great smile. He's polite. He respects you. He's blessed in all areas. He works out a lot. He loves Christ. Your family likes him. He's healthy, and you think he'd be a great person for. He's also faithful and loyal. Only thing is this: he believes God has called him to be a bus driver, and he only makes $42,000 a year. So, ladies, would you give him a chance and let him date you for marriage? $42,000 a year, yes or no? Tatiana, I will let you go first for this one, okay?
I've answered this question before, and I had to think about it. I've been thinking about it. I've been talking to my sisters about it as well. And at first, I would have said, no, absolutely not. Right now, my answer is, it depends. It depends on his mindset. And that's pretty much what it is it depends on his mindset. Does he like where he's at, or does he want to grow? I'm all for growth. If he does not want to grow, that's going to be a hell no.
All right, Onika, the rose amongst the thorns. I'll let you go next on this one. Like I said, the perfect man. Whatever happens, the perfect guy, something happens to Jermaine, the perfect gentleman comes up to you and approaches you. He looks apart, faithful, he loves Christ, everything lines up. But God has called him to be a bus driver. He does not want to do better. $42,000 a year, that's all he makes, and that's all he's gonna make. So, would you give this guy a chance, yes or no?
My short answer when I heard the question would be yes. But I know my husband always tells me
She different. She's special.
Listen.
That's why we got the show. Go ahead.
No, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because you said one key thing for me, Chris. You said God called him, and I'm big on purpose. So if he honestly believes and feels that God called him to do what he is doing, then yeah, I don't have a problem with that, because I don't see myself not working. I don't have a problem with working. So I wouldn't have a problem with him with him making $42,000 a year, if that's all he makes. I do agree that to a certain extent, as far as the mindset, but I think the bottom line is, for me, is purpose. if you are on your purpose, if that is what God has called you to do, because I believe that that's the most important thing in this world, is that you are fulfilling the purpose in which you were put here. So if you are doing that, then I have no problems with that. Of course, we have to get along, and I have to be attracted to you and all that as well. But I don't have a problem dating nobody like that. No.
Got you. All right, fellas, from your experience, all of us at some point we're not making quote unquote what we're making now. If you made $40,000 a year living in Miami, do you think living in Carolina, living in DC, do you think that most women will give you the time of the day if they found out you only made $42,000 a year from your dating experiences? Leo, you go first with this one, okay?
Some would, but and I'm speaking depending on their age, right? So the younger they are, they probably will be more willing. The older they become, most likely not.
Why date an older woman when you can date a younger woman?
Well, I mean, the older I become, sometimes, the mindset of these young girls are not like the mindset of, maybe, when I was their age. So
if you could date a 25-year-old woman or a 35-year-old woman, are you going to date the 25-year-old woman?
25 and you said 35?
Yeah. I'm saying that 'cause I know you want kids.
I do. I'll be leaning towards the 20s, but, a little bit older than 25.
Got you. So if the younger woman then is comfortable with you making $42,000 a year in this hypothetical situation, why even care with a 35-year-old woman if you can pull a 25-year-old?
Well, like I said, it's also maturity. It's also have to do with she understanding, because you're hoping that she's older, but she also knows her purpose as a woman, her purpose as a wife. So these young women, especially the WAP generation, they're different. You know what I'm saying? They, so I mean, it's not as black and white and cut and dry. There's a lot of things to consider. There's a lot of moving parts.
Got you. What about your experience, Will, and everything? We've kind of hung out a lot and everything. Miami's a very expensive city. So do you think women, the kind of women that Miami kind of produces, you think they would even consider dating a guy who makes $42,000 a year?
I mean, I think so. I think it's more so probably outside of our community, to be honest. Since I've been in Miami, I've always made more money than that, but I would think that more women sort of outside our community, Miami has obviously a large sector of women who are not from here, so they're not necessarily as Americanized as a lot of the American women in our culture. So they don't necessarily come with those standards. There's flexibility there. But I honestly, I can't speak from experience here because I don't know enough guys that are making that range of money to be able to speak to that. But what I will say is when I was still in New York and I was young, in my 20s, let's say, and maybe I didn't necessarily make that much money, I still had a fairly decent amount of options when it came to women. I think that social media has sort of driven it so far out of control that a lot of women are just kind of talking crazy. But prior to social media age, when I was 25, 26, and maybe I was making 40K a year, I could still, date women, whether they were inside of our community or not, who didn't necessarily care about that. But I think I had other things going for me, right? So I was educated. I was always fit. I was very social. I always had a large friend group. I was always active. So a woman could look at me and see like he's like an exciting kind of guy. You know what I mean? So there were other aspects to consider other than whatever it is I was making. So I think that's where guys can kind of make up for, maybe their lack of income, is to be able to at least show an exciting lifestyle perhaps, or you have a drive to do some more, so that these women you have a larger sector of women to potentially be interested in you. Because the thing that I do agree with women is nobody wants to deal with an average guy who's average and boring.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to be able to show, if you're an average guy and you're working, you're making 45, 50K a year, whatever, that's fine. But at least show like you're an active person. You like to, go out and do things when you can. show a woman that you have something for her to look forward to other than just a mundane lifestyle, because women are not going to be interested in that. I don't care if they're young or old. They're not looking for a mundane lifestyle.
Got you.
I'd like to say one thing, Chris, if I may.
Yeah,
this is just in clarification of my answer, and Will brought up a really, really good point. Okay, so when I said it depends on how he, like his purpose. Well, you mentioned, purpose. If that bus driver is just, happy where he's at. For me personally, it would not work because I'm also like, we would literally not fit. It wouldn't fit with my personality as well, because I'm not the type of person that if I reach here, then okay, I'm going to stay right here. I want to grow. I want to get better. So if he's happy at $40,000 and that's where God, and I'm so, oh my gosh, I feel like people have this perception of God, when it comes to money and success and whatnot. Oh, he wants me to stay here. I have a problem with certain things when it comes to that. But if he's driven to, okay, no, I want to be the best version of myself. If you want to be a bus driver, are you going to try to own the bus? Are you going to try to go, even more? Are you going to try to, expand so that you can help more people? All of that. Don't just stay here. For me, that's not going to work out, because me, myself, I'm a worker. I'm going to be working while he's working. But I'm not going to stay here. And if he's willing to stay here, that's going to pull me down. I'm not about that. I want to go up, and I want to constantly be going up, and I want to go up together. That's where I'm coming from.
Got you.
Most men.
Somebody raised their.
It was me.
Yeah, somebody raised their. Hey, Leo, let Shad go, and then you go.
Yeah.
Bro. Go ahead, Shad.
So in the dating world, to Will's point, I also had a lot of dating options as well, because to his point, I was, in Urban League, Young Professionals. I was doing marketing stuff around the city. Like, I was really involved in the city, on various boards and all of that at that time. But what I ran into in terms of like my dating history was women that were in the medical field. One of them was a doctor. The other one is, in the medical field as a doctor as well, practitioner and all of that. And what I found out, to Leo's point earlier about the maturity piece, is that just because they are accomplished individuals professionally does not mean mentally that they are mature. Because what I ran into was a buzzsaw of mommy and daughter relationship. It was like, this woman is 30 years old or deep in her deep 20s, still being told what to do by her mother, right? Then you had the family dynamic where, people that are in the medical field that are, pursuing these high yielding, earning potential careers and stuff. What I found out is that they are the golden goose of the family, right? So you have a different perspective when you're dating someone like that, because it's like, oh, well, who is this guy and how is he gonna mess this up for us, right? Because you and I both know when a doctor makes it or whatever, quote unquote, they are making a lot of money, right? You and I both know, if you delve into that deeper, Chris, you can do the numbers on this later. When doctors get out of med school for the first 5 years, they haven't hit their peak yet. You see what I'm saying? They're still paying back loans, and their loans are astronomical compared to, regular people's, stuff and all of that. So it's then that mental piece. So what I found out, and I wanted to say this because this is important, is that even when you're making 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever, and they're making 180, 200, whatever that amount is or whatever. What I found out specifically in one of my most recent relationships is that I was financially, I was making less than she was, but mentally she needed me to grow, because she didn't understand where she needed to be as a woman mentally. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And we often would clash on those ideals a lot. Not because she didn't understand and not because she wasn't willing to, but because her mother told her that we weren't equally yoked.
You're dating a mom, we call it not a son,
Exactly.
husband, a mother, wife, a daughter, wife kind of thing.
Exactly. And it was like, I think one of y'all was talking about how like, like when you're dating and stuff like that, that mother-daughter relationship is real. You know what I'm saying? And if she has not matured past that place, it's difficult to penetrate that, because someone was talking about the competition piece. I think that the mom would not give her game, or could not give her game, because she had messed up her opportunity a couple times before that. You see what I'm saying? So that particular piece right there has to be paid attention to. But again, like I told y'all earlier, in our community, we are not good at context, we're not good at history, and we're not good at facts over fiction.
Right. Got you. Someone raised their hand. I forgot who it was. Was that Leo? All right, go ahead, Leo. Go ahead.
So, there was a situation, this basically, I'm not addressing Tatiana, but not.
Hey, Leo, I can barely hear you.
Yeah. So I was basically saying, to kind of address something, but not necessarily directly at her. But there was a chef, and he met this young lady, and she wanted to become a lawyer. Put her through school. All he wanted to do is be a chef. He's not no big time restaurant chef. He put her through school. She's driven, she's smart, she's ambitious, but she left him. But what the strange thing is, she got with another lawyer, and they ended up in divorce. But she is also in regret, because although the chef, the man that she left, who she basically way out earned, he had time. He was a good husband, but it's just that she didn't see the big picture at the time. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, sometimes, you got to see the big picture. It's not about money. It's basically if somebody's going to be there for you.
Yeah. Got you. One thing I want to say as well, is Financipation. I bounce a lot of different hats. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a couple different businesses. This is one of them. I recently, just literally as we're having this podcast right now, somebody hit me up about a business deal that's going to be very nice as I'm doing this podcast. So thank you, Jesus, for that. It's a blessing. But I'm saying that people to say this. We live in America, and despite all the ills in this country, the racism, the sexism, all that kind of stuff, you can literally always constantly level up. At the very beginning of this podcast, Leo, I was very upfront. I said, I want to have a free one-on-one with you because you are a hell of a math teacher, and you should be having e-products about how to teach geometry, calculus, algebra to our children. And I want you to produce an e-product about that. Will, you're a hell of a finance guy. Rashad, I see what you're doing with your business, and I want to actually do another one-on-one with you as well, because there's some money me and you can make with that. Tati, I see your videos. We should just package that and take it all over the world as far as your workout videos. There's so many different options and things that you can do in capitalism to build money. And the Jewish community understands that, the Indian community understands, the Arab community understands that. So why in the Black community we're not talking more about that? As I said, as I'm sitting there doing this podcast with you, I literally just had a gentleman hit me up and said, Chris, I want to do a business deal with you that is going to be very nice. And as a result of that, there are so many different things in capitalism. So if you are a teacher, you can be making a lot more money. If you are an engineer, you can be making a lot more money. If you're a personal trainer, if you're a finance guy, if you're a contractor, if you're a construction worker, there's different things you can do, people, to constantly level up. And I just wanted to kind of say that. Another thing I want to say is this before we go to the next question. Marriage, everybody, is the ultimate cheat code. It's the ultimate wealth cheat code. What I mean by that is this. Studies show that married couples, on average, have 9 times more wealth than a single person. And when you factor in the inflation, they have 25 to 35 times more wealth. Children that are born in a 2-parent household, they basically are 4 times more likely to move from poverty into the middle class. Children that are born in a single-parent household are 4 times more likely to move from the middle class into poverty. Every other community understands the importance of getting married. Every other community understands the importance of basically having families and having communities, and your children grow up in a 2-parent household. And the Black community, we did for hundreds of years until like the 1970s and 1980s. So we got to get back basically to getting married. We got to get back to basically raising our children in nuclear households, because not doing that is literally killing our community. And that's why I wanted to have this question about, okay, you meet the perfect girl, but she comes with a baby. Would you marry? You meet the perfect guy, but he only wants to make $40,000 a year. Whatever your cup of tea is, we got to get back to basically getting married, people. It's as simple as that.